Hello and welcome to our podcast, episode number 17, Ultimate Reality Clash, Virtual World Vs, Real Life in a Sci-Fi Thriller. I am Timothy, and I am here with my very good friend, Thomas. Today, we're going to discuss a film called eXistenZ. eXistenZ is a 1999 science fiction horror film about Allegra Geller, a game designer who gets targeted by assassins while playing her own creation. She teams up with publicist Ted Picoult to uncover the truth behind their attackers and save themselves from the deforming of reality. Well, Tom, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, Tim, I'll admit that I was initially intrigued by the premise of this film. The idea of a virtual reality game that blurs the lines between fantasy and reality certainly caught my attention. However, as the movie progressed, I found myself becoming increasingly disappointed with its execution.
I can understand where you're coming from, Tom. While I do agree that some aspects of the plot were a bit convoluted, I personally enjoyed the exploration of reality and perception in this film. The characters themselves added an interesting dynamic to the story as well.
Yes, I suppose there is some merit to that argument. Allegra Geller's character was certainly unique and engaging, with her edgy style and unconventional approach to game design. However, I found myself struggling to connect with Ted Picoult's character, which made it difficult for me to fully immerse myself in their journey.
Well, Tom, each of us brings our own perspective to a film, and it seems like you didn't quite resonate with this particular story. I found the exploration of moral gray areas and the blurring of lines between fantasy and reality to be compelling and thought-provoking. While I agree that some parts could have been handled better overall, I think David Cronenberg did an excellent job bringing this dark and twisted tale to life.
Well, I suppose there's no denying that the film had some intriguing elements. The idea of a virtual reality game where players can actually feel pain and pleasure is quite innovative. However, I found myself getting lost in the labyrinthine plot twists and turns. It felt like the story was trying too hard to be clever and edgy without providing enough context or character development to ground the audience.
I can understand your perspective on that, Tom, but I think part of the appeal for me was precisely in the unpredictability of the plot and the way it constantly challenged my expectations. Yes, there were some twists and turns that could have been handled better, but overall, I found myself engrossed in this bizarre and fascinating world. Furthermore, I believe that the characters were intentionally left somewhat enigmatic to reflect the nature of reality itself.
Well, if you look at it from that angle, there's certainly something to be said for the film's ambition. However, for me personally, I found myself struggling to connect with the characters and their motivations. It felt like they were just going through the motions of the story, without any real depth or emotional investment.
Well, Tom, you have to remember that this is a David Cronenberg film we're talking about. His work often deals with themes of body horror and existential dread. In that context, I think the character's detachment from reality serves a purpose. They represent different facets of humanity's struggle to understand its place in the universe and the implications of advancing technology.
Yes, I can see your point there. However, I still can't help but feel that the film could have benefited from stronger character development and more coherent storytelling. It felt like it was trying to tackle too many deep themes at once, without giving any of them the proper attention they deserved.
Well, as I said before, each of us brings our own perspective to a film. And while I can appreciate your criticisms, I still found myself captivated by eXistenZ's unique blend of sci-fi horror and philosophical inquiry. The visual effects were also quite impressive for their time, particularly the organic, slimy creatures that seemed to ooze off the screen.
I can certainly agree with you on that point. The practical effects in this film are definitely a standout element. However, overall, I found myself disappointed with eXistenZ. It had an intriguing premise, but failed to deliver on its potential, at least in my opinion.
As they say, opinions are like elbows. Everyone has them, but that's what makes discussions like these so interesting and engaging. We may not always agree on every aspect of a film, but it's important to acknowledge the different perspectives and experiences that contribute to our understanding of art and entertainment.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Tim. Despite our differences in opinion about eXistenZ, I still appreciate the opportunity to discuss these films with you and share our insights. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I look forward to our next film adventure.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, Tom. And speaking of different perspectives, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about another aspect of this film that I think we can both appreciate, the soundtrack. Howard Shore, who is known for his work on The Lord of the Rings and The Silence of the Lambs, composed the score for eXistenZ, and I think it perfectly captures the dark and twisted tone of the movie.
Oh, absolutely. The music in this film really adds another layer of depth to the overall experience. It's eerie, unsettling, and yet oddly mesmerizing all at once. You can really feel the tension building as the score swells during key moments in the film.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. In fact, one of my favorite scenes from eXistenZ is when Allegra and Ted are being chased through the seedy underbelly of the city by those sinister bioengineered creatures. The score during that scene is just incredible. It really ramps up the suspense and adds to the overall sense of chaos and danger.
Yes, that's a great example. And I think another important aspect of the soundtrack is how it seamlessly integrates with the film's unique blend of practical and digital effects. The music complements the visuals in such a way that they become almost indistinguishable from one another, creating an immersive experience for the viewer.
Absolutely. It really shows how all the different elements of filmmaking can come together to create something truly special. And I think that's part of what makes eXistenZ such a fascinating and enduring film. It's not just the story or the characters, but also the way in which those elements are brought to life through things like the soundtrack, the visual effects, and even the production design.
Well said, Tim. And while we may have our differences in opinion about certain aspects of this film, I think it's important to acknowledge that David Cronenberg and his team did an amazing job creating a unique world filled with intriguing characters and thought-provoking themes. It's certainly a movie that will stay with you long after the credits roll.
Well said, Tom. And I, for one, am looking forward to our next discussion about another fascinating film from the annals of cinema history. Until then, thank you all for joining us on this journey into the wonderful world of film. Yes, I couldn't agree more, Tom. And while we've been discussing the various aspects of the filmmaking process that contribute to eXistenZ's overall effectiveness, let's take a moment to talk about the actors and their performances in this movie.
Absolutely, Tim. The cast of eXistenZ does an incredible job bringing these complex characters to life on screen. Jude Law plays Allegra Geller, the enigmatic game designer who finds herself at the center of a dangerous conspiracy. His performance is captivating and edgy, perfectly embodying the character's unique blend of charm, intelligence, and vulnerability.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. Jude Law really shines in this role, delivering a nuanced portrayal that showcases both Allegra's charisma and her inner turmoil. It's fascinating to watch his character navigate the treacherous waters of this dark and twisted world.
Indeed, Tim. And then there's Ian Holm, who plays the eccentric scientist game designer, Dr. Halbert Hale S. Heckler. His performance is both eerie and compelling, adding an extra layer of intrigue to the already complex narrative.
Oh, absolutely. I love how Dr. Heckler's character seems to embody the very essence of the mysterious and sinister forces at work in eXistenZ. And Holm does a fantastic job bringing this enigmatic figure to life, adding depth and dimension to the film's already rich tapestry of themes and ideas.
And let's not forget Callum Keith Rennie as Ted Picoul, Allegra's reluctant sidekick in this bizarre adventure. His performance perfectly captures Ted's blend of cynicism, curiosity, and growing desperation to unravel the conspiracy surrounding their lives.
Oh, yeah. Callum Keith Rennie is absolutely fantastic as Ted Picoul. I love how his character evolves over the course of the film, going from a skeptical journalist to an active participant in this twisted game of survival. His performance adds another layer of realism and humanity to what could have been an otherwise cold and detached narrative.
Well, said Tim, and I think it's important to acknowledge the entire ensemble cast, as they all contribute greatly to the film's overall sense of dread and unease. From Sarah Polley as Mary O'Brien, the mysterious woman with a dark past, to Christopher Eccleston as Kiri Vinokur, the ruthless assassin who seems to embody the very worst aspects of human nature. Each actor brings their A game to this film, creating an unforgettable experience for the viewer.
Indeed, Tom, the ensemble cast of eXistenZ is truly outstanding, and it's a testament to David Cronenberg's direction and vision that they were all able to come together so seamlessly to bring this dark and twisted tale to life. And with that said, I think we've covered quite a bit about the film itself. What are your final thoughts on eXistenZ, Tom?
Well, Tim, while I do have some criticisms of the film, particularly regarding its pacing and character development, I still find myself appreciating it for its unique blend of science fiction, horror, and philosophical inquiry. The visual effects are impressive for their time period, and the performances by Jude Law, Ian Holm, Callum Keith Rennie, Sarah Polley, Christopher Eccleston, Willem Dafoe, and Robert A. Silverman are all top-notch. Overall, eXistenZ is a fascinating and thought-provoking film that challenges its audience to question their perceptions of reality and the role of technology in our lives.
Absolutely, Tom. I couldn't agree more. And speaking of David Cronenberg's direction, it's worth noting how he effectively utilizes the camera work and editing in eXistenZ to heighten the tension and unease throughout the film. The frequent use of close-ups and unsettling angles serves to emphasize the claustrophobic nature of the story and the character's increasing sense of isolation.
That's a fascinating perspective, Tim. I never really thought about it from the director's point of view before. But now that you mention it, those close-ups and unsettling angles do add an extra layer of discomfort to the viewing experience. It makes you feel like you're right there in the thick of things, with Allegra and Ted as they navigate this treacherous world.
Exactly, Tom. And I think that's one of the key elements of Cronenberg's style. He uses his camera to immerse the audience in the story rather than keeping them at a distance. It's almost as if we become part of the narrative ourselves, sharing in the characters' fear and uncertainty about what's happening around them.
That's really insightful, Tim. I can see how your appreciation for film extends beyond just the storytelling and into the technical aspects like camera work and editing as well. And speaking of the visual effects in eXistenZ, did you know that many of them were created using practical effects rather than relying solely on computer-generated imagery?
No, I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me given David Cronenberg's penchant for practical effects in his earlier films. It just goes to show how much effort and creativity went into creating this unique world and its inhabitants. And what about the soundtrack, Tom? I think we both agree that Howard Shore did an amazing job with the score.
Absolutely. The soundtrack is truly haunting. It perfectly captures the sense of dread and unease that permeates throughout the film. It's almost as if the music itself is another character, adding depth to the story and heightening our emotional response to what's happening on screen.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons why eXistenZ has remained such a compelling film for so many years. It's not just the story or the visual effects, but all the different elements coming together to create this rich and immersive experience.
Well said, Tim. And with that, I think we've covered quite a bit about eXistenZ. What are your final thoughts on the film? Do you have any parting words of wisdom for our viewers who might be interested in checking it out for themselves?
Well, Tom, as someone who appreciates thought-provoking and challenging films, I highly recommend eXistenZ to anyone who shares that passion. It's a film that will stay with you long after the credits roll, making you question your own perceptions of reality and technology. And as for parting words of wisdom, well, let me just say this. Be prepared to have your mind blown by David Cronenberg's unique vision and the incredible performances by the entire cast. It's a roller coaster ride you won't soon forget.
Absolutely, Tim. And it's worth mentioning that eXistenZ was released at a time when science fiction films were undergoing something of a renaissance. It came out just a few years after The Matrix and right before the release of Open Your Eyes, both of which also explored similar themes of reality, technology, and identity.
Oh, yes, Tom. I remember watching eXistenZ in theaters at the time it was released, and there was definitely a buzz around it. People were fascinated by its unique blend of horror, science fiction, and philosophical inquiry. It seemed like everyone was talking about it, from film buffs to casual moviegoers. And I think that's part of what makes this movie so special. It had a cultural impact that transcended genre boundaries.
Absolutely. And what's more, the film tackles some pretty heavy themes, like the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement and the blurring of lines between reality and fantasy. These are issues that continue to resonate with audiences today, especially as our reliance on technology grows ever deeper.
That's a great point, Tom. In many ways, eXistenZ feels like a cautionary tale about the potential consequences of losing touch with our humanity in pursuit of technological progress. And I think that's something that all of us can relate to on some level. We've all felt the pull of our devices and digital distractions at one time or another.
Exactly, Tim. And it's interesting to see how David Cronenberg's vision has influenced subsequent films and media in the years since eXistenZ was released. You can see echoes of its themes and aesthetics in everything from the video game franchise BioShock to the popular TV series Black Mirror.
That's really fascinating, Tom. It just goes to show how timeless and influential this film has been. And I think it's a testament to both Cronenberg's vision and the incredible performances by the entire cast. They all brought their game to this project, creating something truly special that continues to resonate with audiences more than 2 decades later.
Absolutely. And with that said, I think we've covered quite a bit about eXistenZ and its cultural impact. Do you have any final thoughts or insights on the film before we wrap things up?
Well, Tom, as someone who has spent countless hours discussing and dissecting films like this one, I can say with confidence that eXistenZ is a true masterpiece of science fiction horror. It's a film that challenges its audience to think beyond the surface and consider the deeper implications of our increasingly complex relationship with technology. And for that reason alone, it will continue to be an essential part of any movie lover's collection for years to come.
Absolutely, Tim. And I think it's worth mentioning that while some viewers might find eXistenZ challenging or even disturbing, Its ability to provoke such strong emotions is a testament to Cronenberg's skill as a director and storyteller. This film forces us to confront our own fears and insecurities about technology, reality, and identity, all through the lens of an incredibly compelling narrative that keeps you guessing until the very end.
That's a fantastic point, Tom. And it really speaks to Cronenberg's commitment to pushing boundaries and challenging his audience. He's never been one to shy away from controversial or taboo subjects in his films, and eXistenZ is no exception. It's clear that he was interested in exploring these themes in depth, and I think he succeeded admirably in that regard.
Indeed, Tim. And with that said, I think we've covered quite a bit about eXistenZ, its themes, its influences, and its cultural impact. But before we wrap things up for today's episode, I'd like to leave our viewers with one final thought. This is a film that truly deserves multiple viewings in order to fully appreciate all of the layers of complexity it has to offer. So if you haven't seen it yet, or if it's been a while since your last viewing, we highly recommend giving eXistenZ another chance. You might be surprised by what you find hidden beneath its surface.
Absolutely, Tom. And for those of you who are interested in sharing your thoughts on the film with us, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below or reach out via social media. We love hearing from our viewers and engaging in discussions about the films we watch here on Tim and Tom's Film Nights. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more great content like this, and be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, this has been Timothy signing off.
And don't forget to keep an eye out for our next video, where we'll be discussing another fascinating film from the world of cinema. Thank you all for joining us. And remember, stay curious, keep watching, and never stop exploring the wonderful world of film. Good night, everyone.